We're going to roll through some rugby league and basketball and then get into football, and we'll finish with the cricket. But I want to start with some rugby league because we've got a lot of rugby league stuff floating around. Most recently, because this morning I found out that Lennix Tovo is on a train and trial deal with the Rabbitohs. And Lennix Tovo is from Levin. And the storyline of Lennix Tovo as a emerging possible NRL player is that he was playing like Premier Rugby Union in Levin for Levin College Old Boys, I believe. And then he moved to Australia. He was playing rugby union in Canberra. And then he started playing Queensland Cup last year for Townsville. And the Townsville Blackhawks do have a connection to the Rabbitohs in the NRL. And Lennix Tovo playing for the Townsville Blackhawks, round 5, he was a replacement player. Round 6, he played 10 minutes off the bench. Round 9, starting fullback, 80 minutes. Round 10, starting fullback, 80 minutes. Round 11, starting fullback, 80 minutes. You catch my drift. He's playing most of the back end of the season as starting fullback and 80 minutes. He's kicking goals. He's playing 13 games, 7 tries, 6 try assists, 137 meters per game, 78% tackle efficiency. He's got tackle bus in basically every game he started at fullback, including 10 tackle busts in his first start at fullback, and a bunch of games with at least 4 tackle busts at fullback for the Townsville Blackhawks. Now he's on a train and trial deal with the Rabbitohs, and that was an oversight on my behalf when I was doing the Kiwi-NRL Summer Guide on the weekend about the Knights, Sea Eagles, Rabbitohs and Roosters, which is live. We've got 2 Kiwi-NRL Summer Guides live on the website right now that you can check in with for the fringe NRL lads. And I had to update it with Lennix Tovo from the Horowhenua region. And it's pretty interesting when you consider that in 2021, he was being basically celebrated as a 22-year-old impressing for Levin College Old Boys Rugby Union. Here we are in 2024, and he's got a train and trial deal with the Rabbitohs. That's how quickly the Kiwi NRL journeys can spark up, and it's only a training trial deal with the Rabbitohs, so who knows how that progresses, but it will be interesting to see how he develops he played fullback for Townsville, and we'll see if maybe he just develops into a solid depth outside back there for the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs also have Selesiata Otahuhu Jr., also got Nazareth Tawa Maris Jr., who's a forward from Auckland. Just touching on the Kiwi-NRL Summer Guides, the Knights have a massive crew. They are deep with Kiwi-NRL players. Too many to mention here. You've got Sea Eagles. You've got Oliver Lowry from West Coast and Christchurch. You've got Devonte Mihanui, Glenora Jr. He's on the fringe of the Sea Eagles squad. Roosters, we've talked about their diminished crew. And the next wave of Kiwi-NRL Summer Guides that I've got are Panthers, Eels, Tigers, Bulldogs. See what I'm doing here? We're going Queensland, then we're going Eastern Coast, then we're going inland, then we'll finish with Sharks, Dragons, Raiders, Storm. So the next wave, Bulldogs, Sasai Alatini from Christchurch. He's got a supplementary development contract. Cassius Tia and Alekola Simi Jones, they have train and trial contracts. The Tigers have Ruben Porter on a supplementary contract. Eden Ackland on a train and trial contract. Eels only really have Te Huranui Twiddle from Turanga Waiwai. He's on a train and trial contract, but I think it's his second summer training with the Eels NRL squad. And the Panthers have Preston Ricky in their top 30. They've got Austin Diaz on a train and trial contract, and also I was just learning about David Fale, who I think is a Maris Jr. I believe he's on a train and trial contract with the Panthers as well. The other thing I was thinking about with the rugby league was some Warriors storylines, and I wrote these storylines in our newsletter yesterday, and I'll be fleshing them out for a big yarn on the website. So again, that's why you should be signed up to the newsletter, because you're getting all this stuff before we actually roll it out in a podcast or a deep dive on the website. So a couple of these storylines, you got the young wave, Leotawa, Graham Taufa, Vaimunga. That's Dimitri Vaimunga, who's now gone as who has changed from Sifakula to Vaimunga by the looks of it. Jacob Laban, Lekala Sema, Zion Mai'uu. Like, what does the young wave do this season, next season? We've got the web of Shans Nickel Krookstar, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and Tain Tuapiki, all intertwined, all caught together. What positions do they play? What roles do they have? I think all three should be in the top 17. Obviously, Nickel Krookstar should. Obviously, Tuivasa-Sheck should. I'm a big fan of Tain Tuapiki. I think he should be there as well. How do you get them all in? Tuivasa-Sheck, 8 out of 10 in all backline positions. We saw Nickel Krookstar show a bit of razzle-dazzle in the Pacific Championship, so maybe he can do a different role. Maybe he can actually pass the ball as a fullback, add some spice out there. But that's why I like Tain Tuapiki at fullback, because he's fast, he's strong, he rips in, but he's got a good skill profile. Andrew Webster playing style. And I'm curious if we can flow this into the Chiefy playing style updates with the Wellington Phoenix, because we've basically had 2 years of Andrew Webster coaching the Warriors, and both years have been the same. Like, I don't think the Warriors football is very individual centric. That's why I don't really care about Shaun Johnson, because it was all about the system. In Andrew Webster's first year, the system was working well. All the pieces were on time. All the decoy runs were there. Everyone was passing accurately, shifting the ball, manipulating space. The Andrew Webster playing style worked. The defensive structure worked. Last season, it didn't really work. So what does Andrew Webster do with his style of Warriors football? Rugby league football, that is. Another storyline, Tohu Harris. Like, what's Tohu Harris up to? Is he going to play much? Is he Kawhi Leonard? Like, what's Tohu Harris actually doing as an NRL player? And I was surprised to see that Tohu Harris played 14 games last year, which was far less than 23 games in 2023, but it was right on track with 15 games in 2022, 15 games in 2021. Also, Tohu Harris, 95.3% tackling last year. That's the same as pretty much every year before that. 132 meters. Sure, a few meters less than 139 last year, but pretty much in line with 131 in 2022. I have no idea what to expect from Tohu Harris. So obviously it's an interesting storyline. And then we get to something that I literally just kind of alluded to. Shaun Johnson averaged 476 kicking meters per game last year, which was the third highest average per game. Addin Fonua-Blake averaged 73.17 post-contact meters per game, which was the highest in the NRL. For context, 4 players averaged 70 post-contact meters or more per game. Fonua-Blake was the highest. What do we have? We got 5 players averaging over 450 kicking meters per game. Shaun Johnson was third. And the Warriors sucked. So, is Fonua-Blake's post-contact meters and Shaun Johnson's kicking meters, are they important? Because as individual stats, they are phenomenal stats, but I don't think they were conducive with the Warriors winning games of rugby league. Maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, who eats up the post-contact meters? Who's going to be doing 476 kicking meters per game? do you need to do 476 kicking meters per game? Because Nathan Cleary averaged 360 kicking meters per game. And also, why is there so many kicking meters if the Warriors have the leading post-contact meter eater? Like, they're getting down the field, but then they're also doing the most kicking meters. It just doesn't really make sense. It confuses me. That's why it's an interesting storyline. But I'm curious, how do you interpret specifically the post-contact meter and kicking meters? Like, do you have any assistance for me in processing those stat nuggets?
Well, I was thinking the same thing that you were just saying. It's like it doesn't seem like those two things should be aligned. It seems like you should have the most a guy dude with big kicking meters or a guy with big post contact meters, because both of those things are the same in terms of a rugby league game. Like, we're not talking about points or anything like that. We're talking about yardage. Like, this is how you get your team up the field. And one of them is with the ball, one of them is without the ball, because you're kicking it to the other team. If you're kicking it deep, you're kicking it to the other team. Those aren't attacking kicks that Shaun Johnson's was putting in there. Those are like kick for territory stuff, and I think it was a bit of a remember that being a little bit of a talking point, is why isn't he putting up more contestable kicks? Like, well, the reason is because this is how they play. They're trying to pin the other team down and then play off the back of that. So I don't know, like, because a lot of that stuff, if you're getting yardage, you should be doing well in the arm wrestle, and the Warriors didn't seem to have that. But I mean, it's also the case where, like, a lot of good stats like that are just undone if you make errors and if you give away penalties. So maybe I don't know what the Warriors numbers were like that, but so when they play well, they seem like a team that does have a very, very high completion rate, because they are a bit more of a safer team than certain others. They don't necessarily take as many risks. I guess it's just part of being what you're saying about being a system kind of team, is you have a way of playing. And yeah, I don't know how that stuff tracks out. It's also the case that we're talking about two players, so it might well be that Fonua-Blake's getting 1 million post-contact meters, but no one else is really doing much alongside. I don't know. And I know that, like, I don't know what the case is there with Fonua-Blake and other players getting post-contact meters, but I do know that the kicking meters, Shaun Johnson has heaps because he did all the kicking. Like, he was taking the overwhelming bulk of kicks in games that he played, because he did miss a lot of games. And if that's the case, well, that's also a little bit of being quite predictable, isn't it? If you know there's one guy who's going to do the kick, and every time you can put a little bit more pressure on him, load up on that fella, as they say. But yeah, it's these are definitely, it's not just that we need probably more, like, let's see what we see in the first few weeks of next season and then be able to compare that and see how things evolve. It's not just that. It's, I think these kind of elements of sports and stats and whatever are just always evolving, always in flux. So what those numbers mean one season and 2 years time, they might mean something else. Like, they might have been extremely important one time, they might become less important if the game evolves in certain ways. So I think a position of flexibility on those kind of ideas is always important.